Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to today's session. My name is Martin. I'm the legal project manager at ECLA based in Brussels, and today we're very excited to welcome back Knowliah together with Deloitte to elaborate further on digital end-to-end solutions concerning risk mitigation and specifically contract compliance as well. Please note that questions can be asked at the chat box at the bottom right corner. And without further ado, I'll give the floor to Sien. Please.
Thank you very much, Martin. Good morning, everyone, and welcome at today's session about the digitalization of risk mitigation and contract compliance. My name is Sien, and I will guide you through this webinar. What's today's agenda? We welcome you. We do a quick introduction of the speakers. We will talk more about how you can unlock the business value of your legal department, what the role of legal tech can be, and we will also give you a glimpse of the all-in-one solution that Deloitte and Knowliah offer today. But first of all, I would like to welcome Ingrid, Baele and Madhuri Borms from Deloitte. Ingrid and Madhuri, welcome to today's session. We're very happy that you're here, and can you briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, I'm Ingrid Baele. I'm with Deloitte since September 2020 in risk advisory, and we deal with IP and legal operations.
Thank you. Madhuri, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Madhuri. Like Ingrid, I'm part of Deloitte's risk advisory department since 2019. And like Ingrid, my focus is on IP contract compliance and third-party risk management.
Thank you. We're very happy that you're here with us today to share your expertise and insights. And we also have, as all the other times as well, Hans van Heghe and Yves Lefere back in this session. Hans, Yves, good morning. Can you briefly introduce yourself to the audience as well?
Thank you, Sien. So my name is Hans van Heghe. Although I'm an engineer, I'm in the legal world since 25 years or even longer. So a lot of cases with a number of customers built my experience and expertise as well, because you learn from customers. So happy to share that with you on those topics.
Thank you, Hans. Yves, welcome.
Yes, Sien, thank you. My name is Yves Lefere. I am commercially responsible within Knowliah since almost 10 years, constantly discussing and exchanging with corporate legal departments across the globe, with a focus on Europe, helping them in their journey of digitalization when it comes to enterprise legal management. And very happy to be here today to share with you some insights on this joint offering that we're presenting here between Deloitte and Knowliah.
Thank you very much, Yves. Can you also explain a little bit more about Knowliah itself and what you are currently doing today?
Yes, of course. So as I mentioned, we at Knowliah, we're constantly exchanging thoughts with legal departments across Europe, where the aim is always, it's always the same. The aim is always to have more control and become more proactive as a legal department, and have a more visible role within the end-to-end business process of the company. Now, they all know. Everybody knows, all organizations know that, therefore, you need to have centralized legal information. And the information needs to be accessible, needs to be timely, needs to be relevant, needs to be actionable. But in most cases, it's not. So that leads to some severe consequences, that the organization is at risk in many divisions, in many compliancy issues. Reputation of legal is also at risk within the organization, and it leaves, in most cases, the legal department, the corporate legal department, they're stuck in reactive mode. And we at Knowliah, together with our partners, we want to get them out there and make them proactive and get them in control again. So that's our aim of today. Now, we understand that the digitalization of legal information is high stakes. But as you know, it's really essential to the future of your organization, of your business, of your role, of your department. But once you're ready and you have done a thorough analysis in beforehand, in knowing what it is that you need, what your requirements are, what your maturity is on a digital level, which can be very different from organization to organization. Once you're well prepared, once you know what your processes are, then it's not so difficult anymore. Then it's just a matter of selecting the right tool, and then be guided by that partner in the implementation, in legacy handling. Very important what to do with your legacy, with your current massive amounts of information, how to handle them, and get onboarded to actually digitalize your department within your end-to-end processes within the company. Now, what are these challenges that most organizations are confronted with? There are many. Some of them, the main ones that we come across are listed here, ranging from the lack of the possibility of monitoring KPIs to monitor the department, but also to report to management. Managing legal risks overall in different legal domains, collaboration issues with the business, drafting contracts, negotiating contracts that take a lot of time, a lot of administrative support, which could be handled in a much more efficient way. And today, specifically, we're diving into the specific challenges with regards to risk mitigation and contract compliancy.
Yes, indeed. Let's talk a little bit more about risk, as both Ingrid and I are in the risk advisory department of Deloitte. Dealing with third parties and managing risks is part of our daily activities, of course. As my co-presenters, as they will focus more on the legal tech part, what I would do is I would like to take a step back and focus on the broader context of risk mitigation and contract compliance, because I believe it would be useful to have this briefly outline of the framework of risk mitigation, because as you all know, risks can severely impact the strategic objectives of your company. In a later stage, I will focus on contract compliance, and then I will highlight where tech solutions come into play. So how is risk mitigation done in generally? As you saw on the previous slides, the legal departments face a lot of different challenges or risks. And what you usually do as a first step, you will identify these risks and the parties that are related to these risks. And then you have an overview of the so-called inherent risks. So the risks that are linked to the nature of some of the activities of your company. In this case, specifically, that will be the risks of assessing contracts, negotiating contracts, closing contracts. In the next step, you will explore how you can mitigate these risks. What actions will you take? What controls will you build in to decrease these risks? And after you have done that, you still have a couple of things left. And that is what we call the residual risk. And also that residual risk is something you would like to monitor, that you would like to keep an eye on. Now, let's translate this to risk mitigation, and more specifically to contract compliance. And I'm sure that you all already have a lot in place, a framework, for instance, where you have a lot of elements put in place to mitigate all these risks. What I'm thinking of certain contracts, templates of contracts, standard clauses you already have. I'm sure you work with approval flows to process a contract and have it signed by the person who has indeed authority to sign. And of course, I'm sure you have something to follow up on obligations. I can give you another example. If you are in a specific industry, for instance, life sciences, you need to comply with certain regulations. And I'm sure you also there have something in place to monitor you comply with these regulations. Now, all these things to mitigate risks, you can do manually, or you can have software that help you with that. And that is, of course, where legal tech comes into play. Legal tech to make your life easier. You see them on the slide. There are a lot of different systems. There are systems like document management systems, where you can use the software as a sort of repository to store your contracts. There is also software that can help you interact with third parties. Or what is also always important in a company is a system to manage your financials. But what I want to specifically highlight today is contract lifecycle management, because contract lifecycle management is a perfect solution to mitigate all these risks I summed up earlier. And it combines all the previous solutions. Contract lifecycle management goes from authoring to a contract to closing of a contract. It will help you in the stage of the negotiations, where you're still drafting the contract. What is really helpful is the fact that through contract lifecycle management, for instance, you will see previous versions of a contract. You can also work together on a contract, so updates are immediately generated through the system. Also very handy is interaction with third parties. What else can contract lifecycle management do? Well, it can help you with templates. You can even build a clause library. And in the end, and this comes back to risk mitigation, you can monitor, of course, the obligations in a contract. So I think it's clear to see that contract lifecycle management as part of legal tech offers a lot of possibilities to address contract compliance and can play an important role in risk mitigating strategies. That was it from me, and I'm going to hand it over to Hans, who will talk about the trends in the market of legal tech.
Thank you, Madhuri. There are indeed some observations we see the last couple of years in the market. Let's first start on governance, risk and compliance. It's a growing trend, and basically it's due to the fact that regulations become more and more complex, and that also society is demanding more and more of companies. So there is a growing interest and need to address the subjects raised in GRC. Now, a second very important element is that organizations are busy shifting from a reactive towards a proactive way of working. The first visible element of that is that business from in CRM or ERP or other tools are able to initiate contract creation requests, but also other type of legal advice requests. So when in that regard, you see that there is a trend towards integration in portals of legal services. So legal is not a separate department anymore. It's more and more integrated within the daily operations. And if you then as a legal team are not prepared with smart templates, intelligently composing depending on the context of a certain business case, well, you will still stay in the reactive mode and lose a lot of time and cause frustrations with your business colleagues. Now, since risks and compliance are growing, the need for that type of subjects are growing in organizations. It's not only technology that can help you, it's also helping, teaching, learning by your colleagues in the business that those are potential legal and business risks and even can have a huge impact on their costs. So helping to understand those legal subjects by your business colleagues is also a very wise investment that you can do as a legal team. And when it comes to tools, you should look for standardization, but also for integration. Integration of different tools is maybe the biggest cost in an organization to implement digital solutions. So if you can opt for a solution that covers different areas, you will avoid the type of integration cost. You will always have an integration cost when it comes to linking ERP, CRM systems on the one hand and enterprise legal management solution on the other hand. But within the world of enterprise legal management, you can opt for a number of choices, reducing those integration costs. So those are really the must-knows of what's happening currently in the market. Linked to that, there are a couple of observations, things you should know, and integrate that in your digital legal plans. First of all, there is a lot of hype about AI. Artificial intelligence is useful in a number of areas, but those areas are mostly linked towards data. Handling data, seeing trends in data, predicting based on data. Now, when it comes to a legal world is text-oriented. Most information is hidden in text and not in structured data. And in text handling, we have to deal with natural language processing, we have to deal with cognitive computing, a lot of mathematics, and those things are other domains of AI. So what you typically read in the press is AI as data-oriented. Next to that, there is AI oriented towards text. And the mechanisms applied in the data world are not always helpful when it comes to handling legal texts. A second topic is searching. As a legal, you don't want to miss important information. But important information for legal teams or departments is spread around in the organization. And it's very hard to find the right information in the right context. So searching is one thing, finding is a different subject. So make sure that you also find the right information outside your enterprise legal management solution, because there is a lot of information that's relevant for your legal cases. Another thing we see in the market is that we were one of the first ones, but there are copycats. User-based license is basically outdated because, especially in legal, it's not only the legal team that's a user, but it's also your business colleagues that are a user. So you should shift from user-based license, open it to unlimited number of users, having an advantage as an organization that everybody is dealing with the legal subjects that are important for the organization. And the fourth topic of what you should know in our ranking is about security. Security on legal cases, on projects, in general in organization, is a tough subject, but you cannot avoid it. Now, we developed, based on our over 20 years experience with customers, an approach where we, based on a couple of dimensions, help standardize security and have foreseen a number of instruments that allow you for security exceptions to easily handle that. So those are the most important elements that you should know as observations from the market right now. Ingrid.
Yeah, thank you, Hans. Let's have a look at the digitalization journey. It's not just turning on a switch. It's often seen as an additional effort on top of something that is already working. But is it working well enough? What about having a central repository, becoming more efficient, make it easier to check compliance and follow up on obligations, gain speed in administrative steps, and maybe create time for more content-related or strategic work? And once people are conscious about the benefits, the journey can start, and to make that journey successful, some considerations have to be taken into account. The first one, buying software, of course, taking licenses, that's a must. But it's not only an investment in time, in money, it's also an investment in time. It was also mentioned by Yves. It's very important to upfront know what you need or think about what you need and put that into requirements, but I will come back to that later. Then the must-haves and the nice-to-haves. The more people you involve, which is as such good, the more requirements you will have. But if you allow everything, then it will end up in a complex and untransparent system. And therefore, it's good to have somebody in place who can take decisions and who can define what are the must-haves and what are the nice-to-haves and make a proper distinction between them. And stakeholder involvement is key from the beginning, as soon as possible, because stakeholders, you will need to buy in from the stakeholders, and you will also need to manage their expectations, because they will also have some requirements, and it will be not all realistic in the end. So to avoid disappointment, they should be on board from the start. That all leads to the requirement definition. It's an opportunity instead of a burden, and it costs a lot of time, but it's really needed and it's really worth it not to end up with a system that you don't want to have in the end.
Thank you very much, Ingrid, and Hans as well for explaining a little bit more about digitalization of risk mitigation and contract compliance. And we're very happy to introduce the audience today to the fact that Deloitte and Knowliah teamed up to answer all those market needs with a joint offering. And I think one of the experts would like to say a little bit more about that.
Yes, this is how our end-to-end joint solution looks like. The colors show who is doing what, and it all starts with a current state assessment. What is the current state in the company, in the legal function, and what would you like to go to? What is the future state? The difference between those states will end up in a gap assessment. And from that gap assessment, we can have a look at the processes that are in place or that maybe need to be defined, or the processes that are in place maybe need a change. Then we go into the requirement definition, which I will show later on. And in case of contract lifecycle management, we can also do clause and template definition. So define clauses up front, define templates up front, so that for certain services or for certain activities, you can choose the predefined clauses and the predefined templates, which can speed up contract drafting. When that all is done, then based upon the requirements, Knowliah comes into play with the software for activation, implementation and integration, as Hans mentioned, with different systems. And then it depends on whether you had already contracts in place in a system or in different systems in the company, that can be migrated to the new system, and that may need some data cleansing with which we can work together with Knowliah. And then when the system is implemented, or in fact during implementation, joint training can start, and also after go live support is possible to make sure that the system is used to its maximum capacity and opportunities that you can get from it. And then also, of course, afterwards, managed services are possible, where we take care of the contracts of a company, but the contracts, of course, are still reviewed by the company.
Thank you very much, Ingrid.
This is then more in detail, the requirement definition. How does that work? It all starts with, what is your ambition? Why do you want to have an enterprise legal management system? Why do you want to have contract lifecycle management? Which goals do you want to achieve? And which gaps do you want to bridge? The design principles are very important to define from the start. What should be, for example, mandatory versus non-mandatory fields? It's very important to have a proper balance between those type of fields, because it can be quite frustrating for people to have a lot of mandatory fields while the information is not known up front. But otherwise, for the data correctness, for the liability on the data, it may be important to have certain fields mandatory and in a certain format. To which level of detail do you want to go? Because it doesn't make sense to bother people with a lot of details if you don't know what you're going to do with them afterwards. So it's always important to know upfront, what do you want to get out of the system? That, of course, needs to be in. But in view of what you want to get out, you don't have to put everything in what you don't gonna need afterwards. Which workflows do you have? How automated should they be? And who is getting access? What is the access rights that need to be taken into account? Then integration with other functions and systems. Do you want a single sign-on? Do you want to have a connection with electronic signatures at the end when the contract is going to be executed? Does there need to be a link with the ERP system of the company? And do you want to have a link with the HR system of the company, for example, to define the access rights? Then the software requirements, of course, choice of modules with different functionality. What do you need? What do you want? The type of software license, for example, user-based or amount of documents based, the size of documents like Hans, the volume of documents like Hans mentioned. And what do you want to have, cloud, on-premise, or a hybrid configuration? Then in case of contract lifecycle management, the templates and the clauses. Which templates do you need? Which clauses do you need? Very important. Which languages do you want to cover? And also, depending on the size of your company, do you need a local or a global implementation? If you have, for example, offices in different countries, you probably want to have one system for all the organizations. So then you may have a global implementation, but maybe you have local requirements because of local regulations, local laws. And then it's important to find a common denominator for the global implementation with some local requirements that can be then configured locally. Also, together with Knowliah, we have a project ongoing on data localization laws. We look into the data localization. Knowliah has the system to implement them accordingly. And that is also an important thing when you go over the borders. Then there might be needed access outside legal for the stakeholders. It has been mentioned now a few times. It's not only the legal function that will be using the system, but there might be different stakeholders in the company, like, for example, procurement, the IP organization, but also outside the company, there may be external law firms. And if you would like to give them access in a certain way or cooperate with them in a certain way, that is also possible. And then, of course, how to get started. Take well-founded decisions. It's important to tell people why you take the decision or what will be the result of the decision, because that helps to get people on board. And then start the transition to the new way of working. Depending on how you work, it may already be close to the way of working with the system, but some things will change for sure. And it's important that as soon as possible, as you know that you are going to work in a certain way with the system, that you also try to transition already to that new way of working, that it doesn't come as a big bang for the people involved, and that they slightly transition to the new way of working. And then, if that is all done, it's not an exhaustive list of requirement definitions, because it also depends on company per company. But if that is all done in a proper way, then you can hope for a system that is fit for purpose, and that Yves will now further explain.
Thank you, Ingrid. Indeed, the system fit for purpose. Once the thorough analysis that Ingrid just explained is done, so the requirements definition is done, you come to the system, which is Knowliah, and that is the joint offering, and the power of the joint offering that we're bringing here to you is the thorough analysis with a system that corresponds to the needs that you would have. So Knowliah, important to understand, is a modular platform of which contract lifecycle management is a module. We're focusing here today on contract compliancy and risk mitigation. So the focus, of course, is on the contract lifecycle management part of the modularity of the platform. But know that there are different other use cases and operations that we support within our platform, also to cover risk and to mitigate risk. Some of them are listed here. So you have the contract lifecycle management part. You have the generic matter management part. Generic matter management means different types of matters besides contract matters. You can have advice matters, M&A matters, project matters, governance matters, etc. The legal entity and equity management. It's the corporate housekeeping of your organization, which can be managed within the platform as well. Litigation management is a very specific matter where you can collaborate with law firms, where you have the possibility to integrate e-billing, have a view on legal spend, total cost, etc. And IP management to cover IP-related matters. So the broad range of solutions is to be set on a modular way to correspond to your current needs that can be addressed, your current needs that can, of course, evolve over time. Your thorough analysis that you do in beforehand will define what your requirements are today. Important to understand is that the platform is a smart platform, actually supporting you in classification, in search, so taking away a lot of these burdens by using a combination of smart algorithms like OCR for scanned documents, so optical character recognition, artificial intelligence, natural language processing. So Knowliah uses a combination of those algorithms to make sure that we support users to a maximum extent in classification and in search. And we do that by actually attributing constantly metadata to all documents, to all email in a completely automated way, so that a user doesn't have to be confronted with that. So that's the first element that is very important to understand why the system is fit for purpose. Because you want to create value, you want to be able to introduce such a tool in the end-to-end processes of your organization, and you want to be able to gain efficiency, of course. The second important element, why the system is fit for purpose, is that it offers you the best total cost of ownership. Why is that? We mentioned it before. The platform is offered for an unlimited number of users. This to support the collaboration within the organization and the easy and transparent outroll, the deployment into the organization. If you want to involve different stakeholders, because it's not only legal, of course, if you want to involve all those stakeholders, there's always a portion of change management that is involved. If you can lower down the impact of the change management or the importance of the change management, then it will help to deploy the tool. And if you have an unlimited number of users, then it will help you a lot. Taking into account an unlimited number of users, security, confidentiality is, of course, extremely important as well. If you have different people in different departments of your organization in different roles having access to a centralized system within contract lifecycle management or any other of the use cases that are mentioned here, you will want to be sure that people only access what they're allowed to see. Therefore, we offer single sign-on integration with your authentication mechanisms like Azure Active Directory and Okta, etc. But also with the smart way of handling metadata, you will be able to handle confidentiality on a very easy and transparent and flexible way as well. That is the platform that is cloud hosted or installed on-premise on your service of choice or in your private clouds in Azure or AWS, but also integrated with your tool stack that you're used to use or that you will be using in the future. So to have an easy deployment, an easy adoption by the legal department, certainly also by other stakeholders, those integrations are key to have a successful implementation. Some of them are listed here. Important integrations for security, as mentioned, with Active Directory, with Okta. The ability to inherit data that is already present in your organization, sitting in SAP or in any other ERP system or in Salesforce and CRM systems. So Knowliah can inherit that data to be exploited and used within the contract lifecycle management of your organization. You will collaborate, of course. You will collaborate through Teams. You will collaborate through SharePoint or other platforms that you will use. Knowliah can integrate and can synchronize discussions that you have on Teams or the project that you launched on Teams with the different documentation that you share there. That information can be synchronized, for example, in the contract matter that you have as a legal department, so that you're always sure that you're missing nothing, that you always have everything at hand, that you have a 360-degree view on the entire contractual matter. For the beginning of your life cycle, you have the automation of your contract. So you have the generation, the management of templates, and the automated generation of those documents. Therefore, we have plugins with Word, for example, allowing you to actually work in your trusted environment of Word, but having a lot of easy to use and intuitive functionalities to easily create such documents and thinking in blocks rather than in documents. Of course, integration with email. Extremely important to have that efficiency gain that you all are seeking for, but also to make sure that you do not miss anything important. And mail is still a very important driver of exchange of information. You're sending emails, you're receiving them internally, externally. So we have automated connections with Outlook, with Gmail, to automatically capture email into your contractual matter, again, to allow you to avoid missing anything and to always have a 360-degree view on your entire contractual matter. And only, of course, only what's relevant, and taking into account, again, security, of course, security and access rights. OCR is completely embedded within the tool. OCR being optical character recognition, making sure that all your scanned PDF documents, whether they're sitting in the contract management system or they're sitting somewhere on your shared drive, on your SharePoint, on your Dropbox, on your file server, whatever, we will always make sure that they are OCR'd so that you can actually access the content of them. And that we can use the content to auto-classify, so to attribute, to automatically attribute all those metadata. And then finally, certainly also important, is the connection with signing hubs like DocuSign, Adobe Sign, Connective, enabling your organization to facilitate your workflows when it comes to digitally signing documents internally and, of course, also externally. Bringing them so the documents automatically go to those platforms and are automatically archived back into the system with the credentials in the system. So a modular platform that is integrated in your way of working, integrated in your tool stack for an unlimited number of users with a high standard of security, helping you with intelligent algorithms in your day-to-day operations. Now, Hans, would you be able to explain us how we actually make the difference with this joint offering, Deloitte and Knowliah, with their expertise?
Well, a number of them are already raised by you and by Ingrid and Madhuri. Just to summarize them in 6 main points. First of all, the business user, as well legal as in the other departments, are the real users, and they create the value of a system in an organization. They create the value in the way of working, in the efficiency, in the risk mitigation, and so on. So, an important element for me since decades is business user focused. Look to a solution from the perspective of the end user, not from the management. Management is also a user, but the most important one is the end user. And that means that you need to look and to provide pre-configured solutions in different flavors. Pre-configured because that gives a really head start, but it still needs to be adaptable. In over 50% of the cases, we adapt our system to specific needs, specific ways of working of the end users. Important if you want to please the end user is minimal effort and the guarantee that nothing is missed. So that means alerts notifications, easy drag and dropping, things that help a user in handling information, legal cases, legal matters, in a way of working with the least possible effort. And that's also applying not only for documents, but also for your emails. And it's bringing together all that relevant content in a virtual environment. So your most important, crucial information will be part of your legal matter, but know that thanks to the search and find that's integrated in the platform, you will also be able to find information that's sitting in a SharePoint or a file server or somewhere else. So business user focused. Second one, where we come back in a couple of slides, is your proven return. You will need a business case and you will need to validate if your supplier, your vendor is capable of delivering that business case. So it's not only in efficiency gain, but it's also in risk mitigation. It's in providing quality, in providing a service level agreement to your business colleagues. And we have different examples where we always end up with around 100,000 euro savings for a legal team of about 10 legal professionals per year. Another important element is, as we already told, the end user license-based models are outdated. You cannot know how many users you will have upfront when implementing a solution in the legal area. So we provide that way of working with volumes, gigabytes that are processed. We have averages across our over 100 customers, so we can easily share those with you. And another important element, part of our philosophy, our culture since decades again, is no login. We are open. You can always export the information sitting in Knowliah. So there is no login. You will be able, if you want to switch easily to another environment, to another system. Three other elements are the fact we talked about integration with other systems. It's clear when you can choose for a single platform that provides all your legal needs in your organization, it will be much easier to set up and maintain and use in your organization. So one single platform is for us an important element, pre-configured yet adaptable to your specific needs. And then we have the word security. We know since over 20 years that all the sensible, legal, trusted information of an organization is managed and stored inside our platform. So by that, security is the utmost subject that we embrace in our organization, in R&D, in our services to our customers. So security is not only cybersecurity, it's also trust about the fact that your content is safe, the most safe as possible in today's environment. And then, of course, also in our domain, compliancy demands are growing. ISO 27000 is, for example, a standard on information security. GDPR are the European regulations on data privacy. There are new data localization laws popping up everywhere in the world. And also a new topic that's the last months raising more and more in legal teams is the need for KPI reporting and legal spend management. So those are the 6 elements that we see, and all those are together combined in a business case. And you really today, to make investments or changes in an organization, you will always need a business case. So also on that topic, we had previously a webinar, so feel free to consult that again. Your business case is built around 4 or 5 elements. It's about increasing productivity. It's about risk mitigation. It's about handling all your information, having the 360-degree view so that you are missing nothing in your organization when making decisions. And it's about your service levels to your colleagues, because your service levels are key for their daily operations towards customers or suppliers as well. Yves, I thought you were giving a kind of roundup.
Yes, I was on mute. Sorry for that. So thank you, Hans. So in a nutshell, to summarize what we have been discussing and presenting so far, is the joint offering between Knowliah and Deloitte. Why is that an interesting option for your organization in your digital journey when it comes to contract lifecycle management, contract compliancy, and risk mitigation? Well, the expertise and the experience that Deloitte has in the understanding of the different processes of an organization, how reasoning goes when it comes to legal operations, what are high stakes elements in those reasonings? What are requirements? How do you do a requirement analysis? And how do you come to a system fit for purpose? That experience on a worldwide level is unique from a Deloitte's perspective. When we look at the Knowliah experience, we have been in the market for over 20 years with technology that is cutting edge, bringing solutions towards the legal industry, towards corporate legal departments that actually make a difference. And combining those two experiences and those expertises bring a really strong added value solution that can actually assist you and help you in making the difference within your organization. Rather than spending a lot of time in analyzing what you don't really know how to best to analyze, and then introducing a system or more systems that are actually not corresponding in the end to what you need, but definitely also what your stakeholders need. So we would very much love to enter this discussion with you in detail in how this joint offering could be of added value to your organization, with upfront analysis and assessments, and with a system that can be deployed easily within your organization. Also, the experience, and Hans mentioned it before, we also have other webinars that communicate the experience and the expertise that we have in KPI management for legal departments, the best practices when it comes to CLM, contract lifecycle management, workflow automation, and the other ones listed here. So feel free to consult our Learn section on our website, where the webinars are all presented, and you can easily browse your way through it. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. We will be more than happy to further assist you in this digital journey with best practices, with experience and expertise, together with our colleagues from Deloitte.
Thank you very much, Yves, for explaining the webinar in a nutshell. I hope it was very interesting for the audience today. If you have any more questions for the experts, please do not hesitate to ask them in the chat box below. I didn't notice at the moment any question. So thank you very much for your attendance and interest, and also thank you very much, Ingrid, Baele, Hans van Heghe, Madhuri, Borms, and Yves Lefere, for sharing all your knowledge and insights about today's topic. And if the people still have questions after the session left, they can always get in touch with the 4 speakers of today. The email addresses are mentioned in the presentation, and the presentation will be also sent afterwards. So thank you very much, everyone. And Martin, the floor is yours again.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you to all the speakers for another very captivating session. As Sean mentioned, we will distribute the presentation as well, and the contact details will be there. So if you do have any questions, feel free to let everybody know. In the meanwhile, I would like to wish everybody a very pleasant day, and I hope that everybody stays safe. So thank you once again, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.